All right, welcome back to episode 2 of Coach's Corner. We were just talking about where we left off. So we're going to talk about mostly about 2024 and the work we did in 24.
Yeah, yeah. So we finally have a name, I guess, now for the
Yeah,
for
we
these
do. I
episodes.
think we started last episode off with like I don't know what we're going to call this, and then
Yeah, who's the host, right? So
yeah,
yeah, last time we gave a general overview of just what we've done, kind of started at the beginning and then went through that first prep, and then this time we were gonna compare the two preps because the outcomes were obviously very, very different. So yeah, I think we should open the floor to you first and get your general thoughts. I have, a handful of ideas, but I think so. You came in and, your lowest lows were obviously very different, right? But you were arguably leaner the second time and
I'd say
carrying
it's
a lot
pretty
more,
similar actually, but
somewhat similar, right? But still,
but but
scale weight differences being 10 pounds, right?
almost 10 pounds heavier, right? So
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of a big deal. So yeah, what would you say were the primary differences here?
um well, for the scale weight, I think it's important to highlight beyond just the prep, right?
Yeah.
So off season from 20, yeah, from 2021, end of that season, all the way through to 24. So spending basically all of 22, all of 23, aside from like a couple mini cuts in a surplus, and then into the front, few months of 24. Um, and in order to accrue that amount of muscle, I mean, required a level of diligence that uh, I think I apply year round. So prep off season doesn't matter. I always like off season quotes. Like I started doing that because I was like I don't even like calling it off season because it's not really off. It's like this is a
It's
time
just
when the
before
growth actually
prep.
begins, right? Even when like people ask me, "Oh, are you competing soon?" Like, no, not for a couple of years. Like, oh, so you're not training? Like, no, I'm training exactly the same. I'm just eating a lot more, right?
Yeah,
Like, so, but yeah, like obviously, like paying attention to training, nutrition, and then the sleep, all the way through that, stacking days. So, um, yeah, 10 pounds of muscle between seasons does not happen by accident. So, um, yeah.
yeah, it certainly doesn't. I think that yeah, your off season, quote unquote off season, had a lot to do with that. You treated it like a prep the entire way, and every single session was optimized. Nutritionally. We're training in an environment conducive to, really, really progressing your lifts. We uh, I guess, made your back training just a little bit more efficient. But the
Yeah.
rest was pretty much like, continuing to do the same thing, but better. And then, like you said, stacking days. So, spending more time out of prep than in prep is, huge for naturals. And I think the consistency, the slow, just depositing pennies every single day and week, um, it added up. And I think that's, really where the 10 pounds came from. And then, you know, dieting can always diet better, right? You can
Yep.
always take a more efficient approach, but it's built in the off season.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just to double click on some of the improvements we made, some of the training too. I think generally trying to make small iterative improvements in the training is a great way to continue to keep progress rolling, right? Like finding more efficient ways to tension specific areas, better setups, better like little tweaks, better movement selections, things that fit you well, like all these little things. Um, you know, cues that help you. Um, things like, okay, do I need to reduce load because I'm not applying tension in the right area? All of those things. I've probably done even more of that over the last year. We're recording this in 2026. Um, but yeah, I think it's important to always be open to iterating and improving and making small little tweaks because those tweaks do add up over time.
Yeah,
Um,
they do, and that's huge because um, you hear people talk about like running specialization phases, right? And by definition, if you're specializing in one area, assuming that you're working with the same recovery resources, you will then need to pull from other areas or bring other areas down to maintenance or, lower volumes than before so that you can, allocate more stress towards, those target areas. Um, but I think like 99% of the time, that's not needed, right? The answer is rarely more, right? The answer is rarely to do more. And more often than not, the answer is, figure out how to do what you're already doing, but better. So like you said, figuring out better exercise selection, ingraining better movement patterns, tweaking things here and there, just using exercises that re work really, really well for you. I've experienced that myself. So like the most rapid improvements that I've seen in my legs have come from just picking better movements. So like from my first prep to second prep, the most change that occurred was just to my lower half. I for the longest time just relied on a barbell back squat because I really just liked the movement and it was like I was kind of emotionally attached to it, even though I knew that just for, considering my biomechanics, it really wasn't the best movement for my quads. My glutes adductors grew quite a bit from, that movement, but it was clear that, just because of my leverages, my quads weren't failing, right? So like
yeah,
switching to exercises like machines like a hack squat, leg press, pendulum squat, um, volume was, the same or, in that off season, potentially a little bit less. Um, and I actually saw better improvements, not even increasing frequency, not even, increasing volume, right? It was just figuring out how to move better, how to load the target tissue better. So yeah, I think that's huge. And there's so much low hanging fruit. There's more low hanging fruit than I think we often think.
agreed. Yeah, and that's why I'm on the end of like, oh yeah, just lift, eat protein, and that's it. It gets like, okay, I think we can do a little bit better than that. Um, because it's
Yeah.
like how you apply the stimulus really does matter quite a bit. Because it's like that's what's providing the signal to grow, right? Like
Yeah.
you need that.
Right.
So if that's not accurate, like if it's like 75% accurate, it's like you're leaving 25% on the table, you
Yeah.
know?
It's like, those fibers have no reason to grow if they're not experiencing sufficient
Yeah.
tension, right? And so like, you hear people say, oh, those fancy machines, weight is weight, right? Just pick up a barbell. It's like, well, sometimes if you really have an underdeveloped muscle group and the nicer machines, Primes, the Atlantis, or what have you, allows you to get into a position that you can't get with the barbell or maybe even a less or lower quality machine. Um, it in that case it makes a difference, right? And it's just because
Yeah.
you're able to finally load the tissue that needs to be loaded and it hasn't been able to be, right? And so it's like these small differences, they add up.
Yeah, you start to see these things as these machines, implements, barbells, whatever it is, as tools rather than
Mhm.
you have to do it this way, right? It's like I'm not
Right.
opposed to using a barbell. There's times I use a barbell. Like there's times I use free weights. They have advantages, they have disadvantages, but it's like yeah, like it comes down to like I'm trying to tension this area. What is the best way to do that? And what's the best way I can, yeah,
You can say the same thing with like load too, even though, we often talk about and emphasize progressive overload,
100%.
beating the logbook, because proximity to failure is like most important. You can
Yeah.
provide a stimulus through a pretty wide range of loads. Picking a load that allows you to move well, and prioritize that first, and then progress that over time. So like a huge issue with these, predominantly low rep trainees is that you really have to nail it on those sets, right? And it becomes, skill is a much greater component of the lift at that
Yeah,
point. And if you don't move very well, it's very easy to lose the target tissue, right? So it's like I heard this podcast with Cliff Wilson. I don't know if you heard it. I think it just came out on Steve's podcast. Just talking about like basically why he was programming like really, really high rep ranges for some of his clients or a lot of his clients. And he was like, if you do a set of 30, not to say that you have to do a set of 30 to grow a lagging muscle group, but if you do a set of 30, it's like for those first 15, you can't help but play around with your technique. And it's like you kind of figure out, you get that, skill, and I don't know, you just gain a better connection. You kind of figure out, okay, what do I need to do with my technique? Just little things that you might not be able to communicate with other people, but you just internally, okay, if I execute things like this, it feels a little bit better, right? But if you're always using like a 5 RM or, trying to beat what you did last time and trying to get, stronger and stronger and stronger, then you never really gain that, right? And if you haven't done something like that early on, you're going to wind up with a lagging muscle group. I can almost guarantee it.
yeah, and your body finds a way to move weight in way with things other than what you might necessarily be trying to target. And it's like, yeah, you start chasing load and more plates, more plates, more plates, and then even if the range of motion is the same, it's like the actual underlying stimulus can be different. The biggest one I'm realizing lately is like the adductor. Like the
Mhm.
difference between an adductor machine, doing it where you're pushing into the pads and not clamping down on the damn thing versus keeping the feet like on it just so you have something to stabilize, but like light touch on the foot plates is completely different. And I've
Big
gotten to
time.
the point where I'm like, wow, I do not need nearly as much load on this adductor as I thought I used to. And you see people loading like 6 plates. It's like, and I get it. These stacks are kind of light, but let's be honest, a lot of these people stacking 3 plates on it probably don't need 3 plates on the damn thing. They could probably
Probably.
use the full
Yeah.
stack and probably be good with that. But
Yeah.
it requires them not clamping down on the thing and then not being, losing the ego of being the guy that Jim pins 3 plates to every machine, right? Like
I've been that guy too. And
I have
uh,
too. I 100% have.
yeah, yeah. And it's so wild because I compare stage shots, even like my more recent preps. Um, and I know I was moving more load on certain exercises, but I clearly looked like I was carrying much more muscle, like in this most recent prep. And it's like clearly a regression didn't happen. It's just we finally figured out, okay, how can we best load the target tissue as much as possible, right? And I think quote unquote maturing as an athlete means trying to figure out how to bring loading down, right? How to make things
Yeah.
harder, right? I heard this saying, power lifters try to, use their leverages to move as much weight as possible. Bodybuilders should try to do the opposite, right? And try to like get to a place where, they're using less load. So, that's not, a hard rule or something, you should strive for every scenario. It's just, it's a nice rule of thumb,
Yeah.
right? If you can get more from less, that's probably going to be a good way to go about things.
And the funny thing is it's often harder to actually do that because as you progress deep into a set, it's so easy. Like your body doesn't want to stay on that tissue. It just wants to find a way to move it
Mhm.
versus just staying on it and staying in that fire and then holding that tension and just letting it be extremely hard rather than, allowing yourself to move in a slightly different way that's a little less hard. That, yeah,
Yeah, that's a skill too, and it needs to be practiced. And um, it's very easy to lose that, right? You just within the
yeah,
set. So again, if you're using a weight where, the early part of the set, you've had a little bit of practice, you know what that's supposed to feel like, you could just stay in that, hot zone, if you will, and maintain that all the way to, your failure point or your RIR. And just a quick note on the skill component of things, because I think people really underestimate how important this is. We know that this is a big deal because if you look at like powerlifters or strength athletes, for example, where do they typically miss their set? Where do they typically miss? It's loads closer to their 1RM, right? It's their, a 1RM attempt, right? But if they're, performing back off sets that day with like a percentage of their 1RM, you could feel good, you could feel bad, and more often than not, they're hitting those reps, right? Because there's less that has to go right, if that makes sense, from like a skill component. Um, so you can kind of extrapolate that to like a wider rep range, say a 5 RM compared to like a 10 RM, right? It's like the same thing still applies here. It's like you really have to hit the bullseye on all of those 5 reps, right? Whereas, if you're doing something like a 10 or a 12, it's like you have at least a handful of reps to really get into the set before, it really starts to get difficult. Um, and this is like primarily for areas that you've had issues with developing, I think, because
yeah,
clearly, if it's not an issue of load, if you're moving a bunch of weight and that target tissue is not developed, stimulus, you're missing something somewhere, right? And I think if your technique is inconsistent, like even in the slightest, say in a low rep set, especially, shift your hips just a little bit on a press, right? On that last rep, right? Now you're looking at potentially less stimulus on your pecs, right? And then you come
yeah,
in that next week, with knowing that, that previous week you had a bit less stimulus, right? And now we wonder how plateaus happen, right? Because it's not that the performance was inconsistent on paper, it's just that the stimulus was inconsistent, right? So if you're
yeah,
training in ranges that allow you to move really well and keep that stimulus consistent, you start to see progress more consistently, right? So
yeah.
it's not that,
It's actually
one was, go ahead.
That's actually something I've been taking note of and putting subjective notes within my logging is like, okay, that was really good tension, very good tension, or like meh tension, or like especially like the last rep, like I'm like, okay, like I put a 6 down, but I like put a note, slightly spotty 6. Like so like I
Mhm.
have that meter that's more subjective than just there's more to it than just the number, right? Um and then like if I go in like the next week it's like, oh, I have to hit 6. It's like, well, I hit a slightly spotty 6. So if I hit a good 6, like that's an improvement, right? Like if I hit a really good 6, that's an improvement. So like
Big time.
it's
Yeah, I'm,
it's
I'm
more
glad you
than
mentioned
I
that.
think more than just the numbers because there's like gradations from each, like the numbers are like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I should know it, the term for it because I'm an engineer, but it's evading me right now. But like there's area in between there, right? Like
Mhm.
in between each of those increments.
Yeah, that's huge. And the way I see it, your camera roll is half of your logbook, right? So like your logbook is, your
Yeah,
performance, that you write down on paper, right? I think the other half of that is, what you filmed, right? And
yeah,
so like see how did that 6 look compared to, your current 6. And so one of the biggest hacks that I've found, after my 23 prep, from that point until my 25 prep, I would often opt to repeat the same set from the previous week, even though, say, your progression model would say, okay, you capped out the rep range, go up and load.
Yeah.
Uh, I would opt to stay at the same load and repeat the set, even if I noticed like RIR, increased a bit. We know that still works, right? We know that, one RIR is still going to work, right? And so even if it was to failure, it's still going to work. And the way I would look at this is like I'm just solidifying the set before I go up so that my technique is like, applied. We know this is like still a stimulus, right?
Yeah.
So you've basically won that stimulus, right? The last thing you want to do is go up and load because your logbook says go up and load and result in a net decrease in stimulus because you're trying to progress load, right? So it's like you're kind of putting the cart before the horse there.
Yeah, and that's yeah, something that I have done too. Like I'll make a note like, if I'm kind of towards the top end of where I want, like I'll make a note like, hey, clean this up next week. Like
Mhm.
improve here. Like I do make notes of that. And then like with coaching clients like that I have too, like that's something, especially through prep, I think that's something I've really been hammering on is like, hey, we're looking for stimulus here. Like maintaining the numbers is great, but ultimately we want to maintain stimulus. So like to some degree, like as leverages change and shift, and you have less body fat around your joints that are basically providing cushioning, springing, like a springy effect, especially on like pressing and squat patterns, things like that. Like you might actually like the stimulus from a given load might be actually higher. So like even if your
Yep.
strength drops, the stimulus is actually the same with a lower load. So it's
Yep.
like
Yep.
it becomes a thing of like, okay, what are we ultimately looking for? Is it a number on our book that we can write down and brag about, and or is it, hey, like the tension that we applied to the given muscle was high quality, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because your leverages are going to shift in an unfavorable way. So if
Yeah,
you've lost a rep, it's like if we think about it, our logbook is only our best proxy at measuring tension, right? So if your leverages are shifting in an unfavorable way, it's hard to say that a lost rep is actually a regressed amount of tension, right?
yeah,
Because if, you know, for obvious reasons, right? You might be experiencing the same amount of tension on the fiber level just because of, how things are changing, but it might look like a regression on paper. I think filming is so, so
100%.
important. I know, for that exact reason. And it's helped me kind of keep a level head with things because I'll
Yeah,
see sometimes a match or sometimes even a reduced number of reps on paper, but I look and compare the two videos and I'm like, no, this set was way, 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 way better. Even though it doesn't look like it on paper, if we were just looking at an Excel spreadsheet, it's like it looks like we took a dip.
yeah.
But the video, it's like it's so obvious. And so, yeah, I know like the tripods get like a bunch of hate, but it's like, there's a lot of utility in that.
Yeah, for sure. It's just it's integrating a lot of pieces as the logbook isn't the only thing we're looking at. We're looking at the logbook, we're looking at the video, the subjective sense of tension. Because even like video, a lot of times I can notice like there's little tweaks you can make that you can't see a ton on video, but like the experience of tension is dramatically different, right? So, yeah, like just integrating all of those tools, I think is a good thing. Um,
Yeah. 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 I've been going through that with with my RDL or SLDL, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
And it's like the changes you can't see too much on video.
yeah,
And clothing sometimes makes a difference in what things look like. But
yeah,
just really, really rely on my subjective feedback there and, make notes in my log like this, just the cues that I was thinking and just how it felt. And um, yeah, I think, like you said, putting as many pieces together as possible so that you can measure stimulus as accurately as you can.
Yeah,
That's so important. We're looking to build muscle, right? We're not looking to just shift a bunch of weight, right?
exactly. And it's like it's also one of those things where you talked about it being a skill too. And I think a lot of us will find like some of us are more skilled at one muscle than another. Like there's certain muscles I have no issue connecting with, and there's other ones that are just way more of a challenge for me. I don't know if it's genetic. I don't know if it's the the way that I'm so used to moving and the movement patterns are already kind of ingrained in me. It's breaking habits. Like it can be a lot of things. Structurally, like there's a lot of things, and like for me, like getting my lats to drive a movement is really freaking hard for me. Like it's really freaking hard for me to not have other musculature, upper back, arms, etc. take over for my lats. So it just I still kind of suck at it, but like it requires more attention versus like other things. Uh I don't know. The delts are pretty easy for me. Glutes are really easy for me. My VMO is really easy for me. Like there's things that's like it's really easy for me to tension specific muscles, specific areas, and others just harder. Like so,
Yeah,
it
and
really is a skill.
it's reflected in development too, right?
Yeah,
It's interesting because yeah, like you said, my my pecs, lats, delts, like I can get a connection and get them like pumped up, some sort of swelling before I even do a work set. Like they could get some sort of swelling effect from just warm-ups. My quads, on the other hand, have to take a beating, and it's night and day. But I know they're working, but those areas that I struggle with to connect well, those are the areas that I could improve the most and that I have improved the most. And so there's absolutely something there. So you could, they people often rip on that mind muscle connection. It's like, oh, it's just a bunch of bro science. If you nail your setup, the muscle's working. But it's partially true, but you can kind of use that to follow the clues. If you've never connected really well with a certain muscle group, odds are there's something you could work on, something you could improve on, and it's likely going to help your development.
I think a lot of it's like you use the biomechanics in the setup to get you most of the way there, and then the mind muscle connection to finalize that link, right?
Yep.
Because the
Yeah.
mind muscle connection is that little small little deviation tweak at the end that just like applies it brings it from 80% tension up to 100, right? Or
Yep.
90 to 100, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. All good things. So went
Yeah, we,
on
we
a
went on a
nice
big tangent,
side
but I
tangent
think that was
there.
a good topic though.
So yeah, off season was likely to blame for the 10 pounds there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
The prep was very efficient, I think, which was kind of permissive to yielding the 10 pounds, but it was obviously built in the off season following all the strategies that we just covered. Um, so yeah, coming in with a lot more muscle.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd say like comparison wise was different?
Um, I think just always just generally being a more experienced athlete and just knowing what you're in for, like it just helps. It makes the process less stressful and going in, you know what you're in for, right? Um, so yeah. And I knew the things that I needed to work on. Like posing was the thing that I changed the most and applied more effort than I ever have during that prep. And stuff that I still do, like posing every day, like working with a posing coach every week, like that actually might have made about as big of a difference as those 10 pounds did, realistically. Like, it probably, yeah, took the 10 from 10 to 20, like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. So,
Realistically, yeah, you're presenting better. So it's like,
so
yeah, double.
yeah, I think that's something that um, I think a lot of younger athletes and athletes in general could do is like, hey, like, if you pose more, like, this can make a huge difference in the way that you present yourself, right?
It means placings. It really
It
does.
does. It's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You can have a lot of
So,
muscle, but if you can't present it, it's like, what is it worth, right?
well, to the judges, nothing because they don't even know, right?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but starting at the beginning of the prep though, I obviously came down and visited like maybe like a month or two before I started prep. So you got to see me like in person, which you hadn't since like 2021 when I was
Yeah.
emaciated. So
Yeah.
what was your thought when because we like took some shots in your room and thing like
Mhm.
that. What was your thoughts going in at that time?
Oh, yeah. It was very clear that a ton of slabs of muscle had been built. It just, the physique was that density that people talk about that was definitely there. Like, okay, this prep's going to be pretty good. Because you weren't like too quote unquote fat, right? I think we did a good job of keeping things controlled in the off season with occasional mini cuts and lining up your starting point. Um, but yeah, it's just very dense. And I think that amount of dense muscle can only be built with a prolonged off season or just a sufficient amount of time training consistently in a surplus, in a small surplus.
Sure, for sure. And then going through that prep, we started prep in March of 24 with
Yep.
intent to start competing around September. So what is that? About 6 months. Yeah, so
Yep. Yep.
um,
That's, I know that depending on who's listening, I'm sure most of the people listening, that's probably not a foreign idea, but to anyone who hasn't competed before, I know that sounds like a lot. 6 months for, you know, a few shows. Um, but in reality, we wanted to allow you enough time to one, get the fat off, but two, have buffer room, some weeks, buffer weeks, as I like to call them, just in case, life throws you a curveball. And then we, also like to see rate of loss vary or slow down towards the end. So like the amount of time that it takes to get the first few pounds off, it's definitely not going to match the amount of time that it takes to get the last few off. So, you want to plan accordingly. So, giving yourself more than enough, like not just enough time, more than enough time, is it's vital, right? Um, I think we had a similar timeline for the first prep, um, but I think it was just maybe we had a little bit more time for the second one. I just remember how thinking that we had a lot more time to work with.
yeah, we did. Well, we did because I came to you in I think April, May of 21, but I also came to you quite a bit leaner. But like there was no onboarding or any like having to figure things out sort of thing.
Right.
Like we knew it was
Having,
just
yeah,
exactly planned the time frame, and this is what the starting rough starting point of prep. Maybe like I think I gained for another month after this. So
yeah,
yeah, I was like 194, 195. I think I got up to like 197-ish.
yeah.
So
I think that
yeah,
was
this is kind of my
is a throwback.
190, yeah, 197 and a half.
Yeah.
That's but yeah, that's that we had 6 months to work. 197. We were targeting at least to get down to like a 170-ish. So was that 20, about 28 pounds.
Mhm.
Um, and on the front end, I think we were losing at about a pound and a half a week for
Mhm.
for it to start. And then as it tapered off, it was probably close to like I'd have to look at the exact numbers, maybe half a pound to three-quarters of a pound by the end. Um, so
Yeah, yeah. I think so. One thing that we learned through the first prep and into through the off season and into that second prep was just how um, your body weight seems to trend in a certain way, and that sometimes might need a little bit more time than the average person to, uh, I guess, figure out if an adjustment needs to be made. And so, usually what the IG, fitness coaches will do is, look at these weigh-in data as like a binary decision, right? Like if we're seeing numbers reduce, then we keep
yeah.
food where it's at. Or if that number hasn't gone down in a certain time frame, then we're making adjustments. And I think it can be helpful to have a general framework in mind, but I think individual variability is so huge because we would often see like no change happen for like 3 weeks. And then we're like, okay, if we don't see anything happen this week, we're probably going to make an adjustment. And then something like a big whoosh would come. And it was like,
Or it wasn't
hey,
necessarily like no change, but it was like, okay,
it's
we
very
lost a
slow,
half a pound, we
right?
lost a half a pound, we lost a half a pound, and then all of a sudden we lost like a pound and a half. It's like,
Right,
okay,
right. And it was
okay,
like it's been like pretty reliably consistent, which is like it's interesting. I don't, it's not necessarily bad, it's not necessarily good. It's just like,
yeah.
hey, this is something that we should consider.
But
Um,
similar to training, it's like the scale's not the only variable. Like you
right,
track
right,
the
right, for
visuals
sure.
too. And like then you and I were both looking at it too, and it's like, this like visually like things are way different. Like yeah, the scale's down a little bit, but I don't think it's reflective of the true condition changes.
Right.
Um, so
Yeah, so we got a really, really good idea of just like how quickly things change visually versus how quickly things change, on the scale. Um, and I think that helped a lot with decision making in the second prep,
yeah,
because I think it allowed intake to be higher for a longer period of time. Like now, granted, we got down to pretty low intakes by the end of it, but we kind
yeah,
of have to. But I think that's just reflective of like more efficient decisions, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
It's
So,
not panicking like when you don't need to panic, right? Not
right.
that we panicked during 2021, but
We just
you
didn't have
know,
the data. We just didn't know, right?
yeah. You could more confidently like make decisions like, hey, let's just hang tight here, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And we did
That's
include more refeeds throughout as well because we didn't
yeah,
refeed at
yeah.
all in 21.
Right, right. It was a straight shot. Um, and that was one thing that we did very differently. We took periodic refeeds, which I think helps with performance maintenance. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it helps with performance maintenance, but I'm also like of the opinion that running too flat for too long, I don't know. I think it can degrade things to some degree. I think having refeeds where you're bringing calories up, and I think within those refeeds, like I think even I don't think we even quite brought it up to like roughly maintenance.
Hmm.
But realistically, like I think I think you could eat because you know this from peaking. Like you can
Hmm.
bring when you're super flat, you can bring calories like way over maintenance, and like a lot of that's just going to go straight to glycogen and
Yeah,
refilling. It's not going to go to um, adding body fat. So I think topping up glycogen periodically is probably a good idea.
yeah, yeah, for a variety of reasons. Psychologically, um, if you're someone who panics, I think if you're flat, it's very easy to think that you're behind, right? It's like it's deceptive in a way, and that you're probably leaner than you think, and that when you fill out and you take a refeed or you go through your peak, it's like things start to pop a lot more, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's where we are. And it can be a useful tool to, in one way, just measure, like, okay, how close are we? Because realistically, like, you're going to be stepping on stage like that, right? You're not going to be
Yeah.
flat.
You're
So
not going on flat, right? Yeah.
yeah, and I think, like you said, there's something that happens, I think, when if you've been really, really low carbohydrates for like really long time, um, it's much harder to fill out. You know, it's like I don't know what happens from like a mechanistic standpoint, but it's like if you've routinely primed your body to load and then, make use of that glycogen, it just seems to be more efficient when you go into that peak, right? Not to mention you're gaining all this extra data for when you eventually do peak for the show. Um, but yeah, I think that there are some mechanistic benefits that may or may not have been uncovered from a scientific standpoint.
For sure. For sure. Um, and I guess another thing with that, just with a t completely different topic, with that prep is I don't know if I mentioned like I did change my jobs like a month into prep, which
Yeah.
was definitely a little bit of a I hope this is a good move. I knew on paper it was. I thought on paper it was going to be actually a better setup for me, a more conducive setup for me, and it ended up being that. But yeah, that was.
Some question marks, but
It still
hey,
felt like a little bit of a dice roll.
yeah, yeah, which, understandable, right? You have no idea what you're getting into in a scenario like that. But
Yeah,
uh, I definitely wasn't concerned with, the amount of time that we had when that happened, right?
it
So
was
that's
early. It
another
wasn't.
reason.
It wasn't a week out or something. No, it was
Right,
like very
right.
beginning. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's, just another reason. You have no idea what life's going to throw at you, in over the course of 6 months,
yeah,
right? So
yeah. But that was a
having,
decision I made, though, right? So
yeah, 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 for sure, for sure. Yeah, you just, you don't know how it's going to work out, even if it is,
yeah,
your decision. So yeah, you know, it could be way more stressful, could require you to do things that, you didn't expect to have to do. So yeah, just having that extra time, it's like at least you can go into that like with a little bit of breathing room.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was able to get my feet under me in that new job. And overall, like, um, it was in general a better setup for
Mhm.
uh just my life in bodybuilding. It was more days remote than my prior job. So like on paper it was like a good move. And it ended up being a good move, but it was still like a question mark of you don't know until you get to the other side, right? And it's
Exactly.
still like getting
Yeah.
acquainted in a new job and it's just, but yeah,
They're
I didn't want
gradually
to
seeing your
completely
face
glance
kind
over.
of
What's
lean
that?
out. They're like gradually starting to see your face lean out. Like every call you get on, it's like you're leaner.
So I think we could probably I mean, unless there's anything else you want to go through, like throughout the prep, maybe zoom forward to the first shows of the season.
Yeah, yeah. Anything you want to talk about towards, about the back end of the prep and into that first peak?
Um, Back into the prep, I mean, it was pretty smooth sailing all the way. Like, yeah, like calories got a little bit low. It wasn't crazy. Like, wasn't anything I've done they hadn't done before. Like, we had to dig. Like, it's part of the process. Like, yeah, energy got low. Like, but I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like,
You
It,
know what
it
you're
was
in
it was a
for.
pretty overall smooth process and like throughout a prep too like I have such a sense of just clarity of direction generally that it's like my mindset tends to be in a very good place,
Mhm.
so the process is just tends to be kind of smooth, right? Like it's not perfect. Like yeah, like inevitably like calories get low, but like, when I'm doing things that are directly in alignment with what I want in life, it's like things just click, man. But
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, going into that show, WNBF Ontario was the first show that was right around the first week of September, maybe the 8th September, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I went into that show like obviously or maybe not obviously, the objective for that season was A, WNBF Pro Card, and then B, top 50% placing at Mr. America, which is a pro show. Um, so going into the season, I ended up opting for looking at three shows at least, with the asterisk of I want a WNBA Pro Card, so subject to change. Was WNBF Ontario, Natural Mania, which was a week after Ontario, and then Mr. America, which was I think 3 or 4 weeks, three weeks after Natural Mania.
Yep.
So going into Ontario, we still had the objective of winning a WNBF Pro Card. Um, Going into that show, fortunately or unfortunately, probably unfortunately, I knew a lot more competitors that were doing that show than I typically do. Just because like I'm not one to stalk people, but I'm also very
You
close
do the
friends
promoters, right?
with
You knew a
yeah,
lot of the athletes up there.
Leroy and James. So Leroy has like multiple clients doing these shows. Very good competitive clients
Yeah.
too. So
All looked fantastic. Yeah.
I who all look really good. So I was like, I couldn't avoid it. So I knew who I was competing against. Like whether I liked it or not, I could have muted Leroy on Instagram, I guess, but that's about it. Although he was even harassing me in our group message, like, "Hey, this is your competition." Like, oh, thanks, thanks. And then we
Yeah.
had we had some conversations about that too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For anyone listening on, if anyone's on prep listening to this, uh, it's in your best interest to avoid watching other competitors' social media. And I am probably the most guilty of this. So in
No, you.
2023,
Not surprised.
in 2023, um, Aaron Orton was promoting the Washington State Natural. And what I really like this, right? Like as a spectator, but not as a competitor. So every time somebody registered for the show, he would put the athlete up on the show's Instagram page and it would announce, hey, new competitor registered for this class. And so I saw that he was doing that. And after I registered for the show, I'm like scrolling through. I'm like, okay, who am I going up against? And then every single time I saw that page pop up in my feed, I'm like, what now? And so it was like, in your head, you're thinking that, okay, I don't size up to any of these guys, which it's absolutely insane because some of the guys that I was worried about, like they were in different weight classes by the end of, how they drew the lines and, divvied us all up. But, you know, it wouldn't have been an issue. Like I had no idea what they looked like in person, but like on social media, they look absolutely insane. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is probably not going to happen. The same thing happened in my 25 prep. I There was an email list that went out that had all of the registered competitors. And knowing me, I was like, okay, I got all the names of everyone who's registered. We're gonna look through all of these and see like who I'm going up against. Right. And so
Instigator Josh.
there was a couple guys that I'm like, looking at their Instagram page and I'm like, today's not gonna be the day. It's not gonna be the day. And I'm like, this had to have been like 6 weeks out or something like that. And I'm like, getting in my head about, making these comparisons. But, clearly that was that wasn't an issue, right? Because, we win the whole thing, right? And I
Yeah.
know again, all of these guys, phenomenal athletes, phenomenal competitors, right? And they look a certain way on social media, in part because they're really solid athletes. And we just, as we all have body dysmorphia, right? As bodybuilders, and it's very hard to have an objective opinion of yourself, especially in prep. And it's very easy to have this comparison game, but not only that, it's like you don't have a good perception of how you truly stack up against that person. And they have, the best possible pictures, right? And more often than not, you're comparing your check-in pictures to what they're looking like on Instagram. And it's like kind of
In
it's easy to get
downlighting and
upset and
yeah,
yeah, it's
in
like
their best pose, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it just adds to the stress. And that personally for me has happened at every single prep. And not once has it been an issue. When I
Yeah.
finally got to stage. So yeah, and I know you had a similar experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, like I said, it was kind of like it was unavoidable to a certain degree. I mean, I guess I could have avoided it, but would have incurred me blocking some of my
Yeah.
best friends on
Mhm.
social media. But yeah, yeah. But I mean, overall, it didn't stress me too much. Um, because it didn't change dramatically like what I was doing going into that show. So it's like all I can do is show up and be my best. And like at the end of the day, like I went into that show like I'm like I thought I did not think I was gonna win. But I went in, I'm like I'm not gonna have any regrets about this. I'm gonna put my absolute best on stage and I will find out what happens.
It's the best when it happens that way. You go in, you don't
Yeah.
think you're gonna win. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean
Yeah, there
that
were some really, really good athletes there. And
there
so
were.
you made it out of a competitive heavyweight,
Dude,
right? Because they split it up
I think
into
I
two.
texted you after that after the heavyweights. I don't know how, if you realize like how happy I was after that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you got to the center and they moved the other guys basically the entire time. And I'm just, going through your poses in the center. I'm like, all right, here we go.
And then they're like, "Yeah, you can exit the stage." I'm like, "Whoa,
All right.
that was not expected."
Yeah, those
Because one
are
of the guys was one of Leroy's guys, Angelo, who I thought was gonna beat me.
super, super awesome front shots. I mean, really,
Yeah.
really just diced. And yeah, I know that that was a competitive class. You made it out of that and then got into the overall. And the overall was not a give me by any means.
Oh,
It was very, very competitive, lightweight, right? Then
yep.
there were three of you.
Jeff and Derek. Jeff for the lightweights, and
Yeah,
then Derek in the middles.
yeah, yeah. So
And they did rotate us around in the
they
overall,
did.
so I wasn't as confident when
Right,
they were
right.
calling
So
names.
they,
And there was
I
only
was
one
like
pro
on the
card
edge of
available
my
in that show
seat.
too.
I was on the edge of my seat watching this because in the overall, like towards the end, they moved you out of the center and then they moved you back. And I'm like, I think he got it. I think he got it. But like, there's
The
this
other
like,
thing is, I know in overalls too, they always move everyone around.
yeah, yeah.
In the WNBF at least.
But it wasn't like you're prejudging round. It was just
No,
like,
no.
okay, we're in the middle, we're not moving. So
I
I was
think
like,
they
I
like
think I think
prejudging,
he
they
got
tend
it,
to
but
keep everyone kind of they tend to move people to the middle or keep them in the middle, but like overalls, I know they've said it like they even say like a lot of times going into overalls in WNBF like, hey, we're gonna move people around. Center doesn't mean much. So you'll see like
right.
Babacar on the far right. It's like, yeah,
Right, right, right.
like
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And then I'm sure you had a very similar feeling to how I felt when they called your name for the card. You know, that was a surreal moment.
It was unbelievable, man.
Yeah. So that was a good day. That was a good day, and I certainly won't forget that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So you were the first guy I turned pro. I
Yeah.
turned pro. I know that sounds weird. It's just how the
Yeah. Yeah.
coaches say it. Um, yeah, I think you were the first competitor I had who turned pro. Put it that way.
I called you right after, FaceTimed you, bawling my eyes out.
Yep. Yep. I was able to keep it together for mine just a little bit, and then I got to my car and it just all kind of came out.
Did you really?
Yeah, yeah.
Girl, I didn't
Um,
know that.
yeah, I held it together long, like it started to come out on stage, and then it like, okay, hold it together, and got to my car and like, all right, just it's all hit.
Oh, are you talking? You're talking when you won
Yeah,
yours?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I was
Oh no, I assumed that.
when I saw yours, I was like, yeah, that was a surreal moment for me too, because it was like, okay, this is a big deal, like from a coaching standpoint. Like, all right, we're in the conversation now. I'm coaching pro athletes now. It's very different. And so that was that was huge. And I was super excited. Honestly, it was emotional for me seeing, your response, because, knowing that, even though it's like a remote thing, just having some sort of impact on that, it was like, man, like that's an unreal feeling.
And like everything leading up to that show, like the peak went so well. Like we loaded food pretty hard, and like I just soaked every bit of it up, and like every little bit leading into like that whole and on the day, like
It just, yeah, it all lined
it
up.
went about as perfect as it could have possibly gone.
Yeah. Yeah. The stars align and you kind of just know. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like everything's like lining up so well. It's like, okay, we're probably in for a good weekend.
And then the so um obviously that was a big high. And then the following weekend we were intending, or I was intending to do the Natural Mania the weekend after. And since I won pro status at Ontario, I had to message Nancy and be like, "Hey, can you change my status to pro, or and
Oh,
move me into the
universe.
pro show instead?"
It's
Which I think that's the way to do it because I didn't have to pay the pro entry fee. I paid the amateur entry fee and then got to do the pro show. So
I wonder if they thought of that. They
I
probably didn't. Probably didn't even think
don't
of
think
it.
they
They
thought
just
of it.
move him.
That's they just moved. I didn't even think about it at the time. I like thought in hindsight, like, oh yeah, the pro show I guess was probably more expensive. I don't know, but Tanner.
Technically, it is, I think, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it worked out. And then we get to the pro universe, which turned out to be
And you were
pretty
there for
competitive
that.
show. That was a pretty competitive show. Um, I was pretty pleased with your look on that day. I think we loaded a bit harder because I think, with the first show, we were like, okay, we're going to go off of refeed data here, but we're going to play the conditioning game here. Um, Not that you necessarily have to pick one or the other. I
Yeah.
think there's some athletes that
Oh, that was our first peak too. So it's like,
we
yeah,
didn't
we're
we
gonna.
didn't really need to chase fullness. It's not like it was a very low probability that like someone was going to like severely outmuscle you. So in that scenario, I was like, okay, let's have, more than quote unquote enough, more than your refeed, but
Yeah.
I'm not trying to push for super compensation right now, anything
Yeah.
like that. We know it's going to be a really, really good look. Let's use this, collect some data, because it's going to be a winning look. right? We don't need to do anything like risky or fancy or anything like that. Let's just get this data, go in with this awesome look, and then, based on what happens, we'll adjust for the second show. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
and
don't think
then
we didn't load that much harder. It was pretty similar, but yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we definitely did load maybe like 25 or 50 grams of carbs more per day, something like that.
yeah, technically
Well,
more, but like not a crazy amount.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you were here for the universe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I took that.
You did this one on the right hand side. This is from a video actually. Did you
Yeah,
take
that one
this
was
one
fun.
too, or did someone send that to me?
I think someone, yeah, I definitely didn't take that one.
Because that's from a slightly different the other side, I think. Yeah, what were your thoughts going into this one? You obviously got you got to tan me in person too,
Yeah, that was,
or apply the glaze, the magic glaze.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right
That
before
stuff's
you
that's
went on
great
too.
stuff, isn't it? The
Right,
island glow.
right before you went on.
Yeah. Yeah, I picked that up from the WNBF Ontario tanning team is awesome, and they had this glaze. It was I think I called Iron Glow, comes in like a light blue bottle, and it kind of looks like Dream Tan.
Yeah, yeah. And I was afraid that someone was going to think it was. So I was like, okay, let's just like get this on you as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
And
you
just
could
go
see
out
like I have a
there.
slightly different color. Like probably compare best comparison would be like
Mhm.
complexion wise would be Joe. Like you can see
Yeah,
I had I think he used the tanner there, right? I think he used the tanner there. But I used the tanner there, but I put the product on. So,
yeah.
but yeah, you got to apply it though. Get down and dirty.
You remember, so we go into the restroom that was backstage, and it was just like a solo restroom, and I think like four people like banged on the door,
Walking
and
on the door. Yeah.
and then people are waiting outside, and we're like, glazing you up, and then the door finally opens, and two of us come out. There's like, what on earth was going on in there? And then they called your lineup, and we're like, all right, go, go, go,
Yeah,
go.
yeah. I know you have that photo posted somewhere. I don't think I
Yeah.
posted in this thread, but yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that was a pretty successful showing, I thought. I thought the look actually was a little bit better than Ontario.
I think it
Um,
was too. I saw that side chest. I hadn't seen that in a while. Like size wise, I mean, you sized up really well with those guys. And the guy who won that class, I think he placed like third in his class at Worlds,
yeah,
and
he
and
took
that was
third to
to Oscar and Babacar.
Oscar Babacar, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that's a good third, right? So
Yeah,
that guy
that was
is a
Sal,
monster.
yeah.
Yeah, so like that, like sizing up next to that guy, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought yeah, showed myself in a good lineup.
Yeah,
That's trying to think. Yeah, so I took fourth in that show, fourth of six. So Joe edged me out there, but pro debut. Joe's a very seasoned pro. I was happy with it. I didn't really have expectations going in. So
I was happy with it too. I just when you go into a pro lineup, it's like you're stepping in with a bunch of monsters, right? And the guys who beat you, I think I'm not sure about Joe, but I'm pretty sure every single one of them were older than you, and that's a
yeah,
significant deal with natural
it was Steve
bodybuilding.
Sutcliffe that took second in that show,
Right, right. So like, how many more
or
sessions?
Sutcliffe. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like how many more sessions does that guy have to improve, right?
yeah,
It's yeah, a lot more. So like when you're his age, it's like yeah. going to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, so we hit the pro debut and then 3 weeks later, Mr. America. I think we dug off maybe 2 or 3 more pounds from there to Mr. America,
Yep.
something like that. Um, Goal with that show was to place in the top half of that of a pro class. So that was the only goal I missed on that season. I took sixth of
You're,
nine, I think, in my
yeah.
class.
So yeah, and that was an interesting one. Obviously, I'm biased as a coach. The way things were like moving around was kind of confusing how they had um, you guys lined up and everything. But yeah, I mean that was a very competitive lineup as well. Again, I was definitely okay with the placings. The look was really really good, and I think the main thing I was just like so happy with was how this looked compared to the last time you stepped on that stage.
Dramatically different for sure.
You know, you do that long enough, that's a good shot.
I like these backstage shots. Yeah, of Natalie
Yeah.
too. Natalie looked great as well.
Yeah, she looks crazy. You know, you do
Sorry.
that
Yeah.
long enough, placings aside, you know, eventually you'll get to where you want to get to, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've got plenty of time left to continue to climb that ladder. So, um, I mean, being 33, I got another decade plus. So
Yeah, I'd say so.
that's a yeah. I think that might be a good place to kind of leave this one off for the next one. Um,
Yeah, covered a
that's
bunch there.
that was the 2024 season. We could talk probably through next time, maybe talk through the reverse process afterwards, and
Mhm.
um, I don't know, maybe get into some stuff from there and beyond that. Um, or I'm sure we'll go on more tangents. But
Yeah,
any other thoughts like recapping that 2024 season? I thought overall it was for me it was a very successful season, showcased by far my best, achieved WNBF pro status, presented myself way better than I ever have in the past. Um,
yeah. I think, you know, obviously any prep that you turn pro at, it's a very successful prep, right?
yeah,
I think, um, you know, from an outcome standpoint, of course, right? Like from a process, you know, oriented, you know, point of view, you know, we took a lot of wins in that. One, we just knew your body a bit better than the first prep, and you know, just we just got more efficient in numerous ways. The process was
yeah,
just a little bit better, and you know, all the areas that we could improved on, and you know, you just did the thing better in all aspects. Which you know, if we didn't have the desired outcome, it still would have been a win from that standpoint, just because you brought a better look, you prepped better. From like an athlete standpoint, you were a better athlete through this prep, right? And I think that's what's so important is improving on those things from prep to prep to prep, just being better. You will be a better competitor. You will have better placings if you can do these things.
yeah. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to building the physique. You know,
Yeah.
the cards, the statuses are great. I think are things to strive for. But you never know who shows up on the day, and it's
Yep.
ultimately, are you better than you were in your last showing, right? Are you
Yep.
progressing in this game and displaying a more professional physique, right?
Yep. 1,000%.
So cool. I think that's a good place to close it. Josh, thanks for
Yep.
jumping on another one. We'll
Yeah.
record and go through the reverse process because I think that's a good topic in and of itself.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, if you have any questions about the prep or anything for Josh or I, feel free to leave a comment or send us a DM. Josh for coaching inquiries, where can you find you?
Yeah, Instagram would be a really, really good place. Just my name clipped, so at Josh T. Brad. Um, beyondbodybuilding.com. It's where our team coaching page is, and some academic-ish resources, educational resources are also um, on that platform as well. Instagram is probably the best place, I would say.
Right up. All right, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.